If you've ever used tubeless tyres, you might have run into one or two slightly tricky issues along the way. So coming up are my 5 top tips to help you combat and win the fight against even the most stubborn and tricky of tubeless tyres. Tip number 1 is start with everything clean and tidy. If you've got a wheel that's covered in grit, mud, maybe old tubeless sealant, it's going to be quite slippery. Now, to make life easy, you do need to clean it up using an old cloth or rag, and then you can have a perfectly good grip onto that tyre. And if you've got any old sealant or glue stuck on there, why not use a glue or sealant remover? Make life a breeze. Tip number 2 is to change or modify the amount of rim tape which is installed onto your wheel. Now, if you've got a tyre which you're finding particularly tricky to install one or both of the tyre beads on because it seems incredibly tight, you can reduce the overall circumference of the rim by using one layer less of rim tape. So you could remove it off and put fresh stuff on, but only go round the rim once. That is going to reduce the overall diameter of the rim and therefore make it a little bit easier to get that tyre on. However, if you have the opposite problem and you've got the tyre installed onto the wheel, but you're finding that the tyre is a bit of a loose fit, you can use your rim tape again to refine the fit of the rim. Just add another layer or two to increase the overall size of the rim, and it should make it a better fit for the tyre and it'll make it easier to pump up. Tip number 3, so you've done most of the hard work and got all of the tyre bar this one little section onto the rim, but you can't quite get this real stubborn bit to fit into the wheel well. So what do? Well, at the start of this video, having said to make sure everything is clean and free of oil, grease, mud and tubeless sealant, I'm now going to tell you that if you get a little bit of tubeless sealant, dab it onto your finger and then rub it on this little section of tyre bead, which is proving particularly tricky to install, and also a little bit of tyre sealant onto your tyre lever, it will help the tyre lever glide into place and is going to act as a lubricant to help slide this last bit of tyre bead up and over into the wheel well. It should make it nice and easy. Tip number 4 next, and if you found that my 3rd tip didn't solve your problem, well, I've got 2 additional solutions for you here. So if you're really still struggling to get one section of tyre bead over and into the central wheel well, you have 2 options. First one is to make sure that the entire section of that side of the tyre is pushed into that central wheel well. So work your way all the way around and make sure none of it is sat up on that slightly higher shoulder of the rim. Once you have done that, it will enable you to have an additional extra little bit of slack tyre at the top in order to get it over into that central wheel well. So that is the higher shoulder, which has an overall larger circumference, and this lowest section is going to be where you want the bead to be to give you enough slack. The other thing is to consider trying to finish putting that side of the tyre on at the valve. The reason for that is it's just going to give you that extra little bit of slack and free play to get the tyre over and onto the rim. Tip number 5, and that is our final tip, and it's to do with inflating your tubeless tyres. And whilst in many situations you can pump them up with your regular track pump, I mean, come on, you guys see me doing it all the time, even though I see people in the comments saying, oh, I see they faked pumping up the tyre again to make it look easy. No, I didn't. Sometimes it is that easy. But if you are struggling to get your tyre to inflate because the air is leaking out the side faster than the rate that you can pump it up, you've got 3 options. Option 1 is to remove your valve core to allow for greater and a faster airflow into your tyre. Option 2 is to try and manually pull the tyre bead up onto that higher shoulder of the rim. And if you carefully work your way round, sometimes that can be the difference between inflating or still having a tricky time. And then the 3rd option, and quite potentially the easiest option, is to get a tubeless canister, inflator, blaster, whatever you want to call it. And these are the simplest option. You simply inflate this using your normal track pump, attach the hose onto your tyre, onto the valve, and then with, quite literally, the flick of a switch, all of that air pressure is dumped straight into your tyre in a matter of seconds, and well, it's going to inflate any tubeless tyre, even the most trickiest of ones. Oh, I'll tell you what, we'll have a little bonus tip, shall we? And that is to use a good quality tyre lever. Now, chances are tubeless tyres, they are going to be a little bit tricky and a little bit stubborn to get onto the rim. So if you use a good quality tyre lever, you don't run the risk of damaging the tyre bead, scratching the rim of your wheel, or just sometimes the cheap ones will break, whereas a good quality nylon one like this, well, it's going to last you years. Those are my tubeless tricks and tips that have served me well so far over the years. And I've got to say, I've yet to been defeated by a tubeless tyre. But if you have any tips or tricks of your own, well, let us know in the comments section down below. And you know what to do with this video. Share it far and wide with all your friends. Click on that like button, get the comments in. Oh, and subscribe to GCN Tech. See you later.